Good afternoon, good evening. This is the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, and we are focusing tonight on why is it that our congregation, our sanctuaries, our buildings are so cold, and what can we do about it? We have two really exceptional speakers tonight, Scott Donelson, who is the president of Home Energy Medics, and Alison Derevensky, who is from BlocPower, which is a company that finances building energy efficiency work. What I would like to do, if my technology is working, is to show you a brief video from one of our congregations that has gone through this journey of improving the energy efficiency of their buildings. So if my technology, which was not working before, is now working, I would like to show you what one of our congregations, Rock Springs United Church of Christ, has done in going through this process.
I love the fact that this church is always at the front of the line. From civil rights in the 1950s, the first desegregated library, to helping found the first homeless shelter, the first food bank. Social mission is embedded in this church. I began to struggle with this personally for several years. And what can you do something like climate change? It's so big. It's so, I mean, as an individual, it's just so overwhelming. And so you have to break it down. You have to start, here's the steps I take before I can run. And that's kind of the way we looked at this whole thing.
We started with an evaluation of our energy consumption, and we got that through an audit that really let us see how much we were using and where the energy was going.
Roughly a 100-year-old campus in some places. There was literally nothing between the inside and the outside except the drop ceiling. So we were heating and cooling the outdoors. And you can imagine the tremendous waste, not only waste in terms of climate impact, but waste in terms of what it cost. We did as much insulation as we could. We have cut by 80% the amount of natural gas usage in terms of HVAC within 1 year.
We also discovered that there was a lot we could do with windows, with ventilation. There was a lot that we could do, of course, with putting solar on our building, which we've also done. So our commitment to working on lights and lighting is one that we've been working on for more than 10 years now, led by John Overholtz. John really did the study when people in the choir were complaining that they were getting hot under the lights. And so John saw that as an opportunity to change out the lights and to replace them with LEDs. He has then gone on to create over 450 different lighting elements here in the church.
Looking at reducing your lighting budget, the first thing you should look at is lights that are always on. Things like exit lights. It would be simple to just replace those.
Lost audio.
Me too, lost audio.
Okay, done here. I want to tell people
Everybody did.
carbon footprint without having to change their lifestyle in a major way.
Fundamentally, if we are called to love one another as God has loved us, then we recognize the way that everything and everyone we love is at stake in climate change.
I think people tend to look the other way on big subjects that are difficult sometimes. There doesn't need to be that difficulty now. It's a much easier pathway than we had before. And you can have a wonderful life and not emit carbon.
Whoops.
Penny Matthews says she and her husband
Oops,
have labored with
hold
love
on.
to restore and maintain their academic.
This helps to share where we can go in this journey to increase the energy efficiency of our buildings and to make our buildings safe spaces for our mission, for our communities. I'd like to turn the presentation now over to Scott Donelson from Home Energy Medics, who will provide really a strong background of how to ground energy efficiency in your building and what a local contractor is doing to help improve the energy efficiency, the comfort of our buildings. Scott? You need to unmute, or do I need to unmute you?
Sorry about that. I said thank you, Eric. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we will get things rolling here. Okay, going into slideshow mode here for you guys. Okay, can everybody see that okay? Okay, awesome. So, well, I was asked to give a little bit of primer here on kind of the insulation air sealing as well as the HVAC aspects of kind of why your sanctuary is so cold. And I'll preface this with saying that this could be hours and hours long. We're kind of hitting the highlights here. So I'm sure there'll be some questions. I'm happy to answer follow-up questions later on and down the road as you folks see fit. So okay. So anyway, what I'm going to talk about is house as a system. How your home, but it's really the building uses energy. I'm going to provide insight in the top 4 common sources of the comfort and efficiency problems. Talk about heat pumps, how they work, and some other options, and talk about how to go about finding these problems and addressing these problems professionally in your house, and priorities to fix problems to get really the most bang for the buck. So, and with that, just for those who don't know me, I'm a certified building analyst and envelope professional with a building.
Do you want to advance your slides?
I did. Showing up now?
I see a cursor with a frozen buffer wheel, so it may be frozen on our end, but it may be working on yours. Could you try resharing your screen again, and maybe that will work?
Yeah. I can stop share, and we'll try sharing again here.
Now it's sharing.
Okay. All right. So say about Scott at the top.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So, well, I do consulting, some consulting for folks. I have a couple engineering degrees, really inspired by having an audit done in my own house years ago. And I'm the owner of Home Energy Medics. And just a little bit about Home Energy Medics. We're a contractor in the operating in the local area for now about 15 years. And licensed in all 3 jurisdictions. We're proud of the Sustainability Champion award we got just this past year from Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, as well as our Chamber of Commerce Sustainable Business of the Year. And then kind of crowning achievement we have is the EPA and DOE's Home Performance and Energy Star Contract of the Year. We've been seeing that every year since 2019. So obviously we're doing something right, so which is great. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the improvement priorities because this is not really well understood, but it's from the DOE. The big thing to start out with is your building envelope or shell. It's sealing the structure, and I'll get into that in a minute. Insulation, sealing up your ductwork. Then it's mechanical systems upgrades, whether it be the HVAC or the water heater. Then talking about window replacements, appliances, and then renewables. Those are the typical order of operations that they recommend. The idea is you reduce your consumption first, or you reduce before you produce. But we see big improvements with just the typical or first three alone can offer big changes without putting in mechanical systems. So, okay. And what I want to emphasize is your house is a system, okay? In this case, called building as a system. We use that term house as a system, but it's a comfort, air quality, moisture, the HVAC operation, and energy consumption. They're all interrelated, okay? And that insulation air sealing is going to reduce that heating and cooling load and allow for smaller replacement downstream on the system side when you're ready to do that. So, and then and bigger is not better. Like I mentioned, when it comes to air conditioners, it can cause huge problem on the air conditioning side with humidity issues. So, okay, the typical building energy use. This is heating cooling breakdown. But what is from the DOE? But what is really important to look at is the space heating portion. It's a huge chunk of what you're consuming. As we heard kind of in the video, they reduced 80% by insulating and air sealing their place there, but their congregation buildings. But 40% of that, 43 or better than almost half, is through air leakage. Duct structure, etc., is a big problem. So, and that's really a big driver for being uncomfortable and using too much energy and just wasting it. So, okay, and that as I kind of alluded, the number one source, as I said before, is that air leakage. It's really about the holes. Most buildings are leaking 2 to 5 times what they need to for a healthy air exchange. The old adage, hey, I gotta let it breathe. It's breathing plenty on its own. Trust me on that. So number one cause of efficiency and comfort issues. And I tell people, if you saw water running down the wall, you're not just gonna let it run down the wall. You're gonna take care of it. But we can't see the air, and that's why we don't fix it. So that's we feel it though in drafts and so forth. Kind of how this manifests itself, and the typical problems are high and low. The 78% of your loss is vertical. That's an important thing to remember. Whether you're dealing with a crawl space under a part of like offices next to fellowship hall, or really it's all the areas above those spaces, whether it be the sanctuary or fellowship hall, other offices. But it's all these spaces here, the tops of walls, plumbing penetrations, and this is kind of how it manifests itself in infrared. You see all these streaks, which is air, and this happens to be in the summertime where you got hot air coming in instead of cold air like these others. So, and those are all again from the infrared images that are taken. Typical fixes. People wonder, oh, how you fix that? You just seal up the holes. You seal them up typically with spray foam. Typical, and it's all kind of manual labor, but really makes a difference. And the other big problem is insulation, of course, but older homes or buildings, you could say, just in general, and we see it a lot, seen it a lot in some of the churches we visited, only have at less than 50% or less of the required R value by today's standards. But what's really important to remember is that insulation without air sealing is only 50% effective as a two combined. So big deal. So you can add insulation, but it's not an air barrier, it's an air filter. And if anybody's ever pulled out a piece of a bat type material or blanket insulation, it's you're going to see dark spots around the edge. So okay. Typically, if folks could go on mute, that would help me a lot. So, but insulation levels, you can see real low. This is what we see and have seen in multiple congregation buildings. And then this is how it manifests itself in the summertime. It's just really, bright orange. So just be blue in the winter. So, okay. Another big problem, it's not really well thought about or well understood, is duct leakage. There can be disconnects in the duct. All the ducts are put together with called slips and drives, typically metal ductwork. They all leak at the corners. And what it does is the system's putting out all this air, but it's just leaking out along the way. I tell people it's analogous to a water hose where you're turning on a spigot on the tying it to spigot in the, let's say, the basement, and you're pumping water all the way up to the uppermost floor, and that hose is all full of holes all the way up. Well, what you get out isn't what you put in. That's the ticker or kicker there. So, and sealing up the ducts makes a big difference, and it all can be done internally. You don't have to tear anything apart to do it. So it's really pretty straightforward and easy. So, and then the next big one here is, and this will kind of segue into our kind of heat pump section here, is the fourth item is HVAC replacements. Okay, that's number one, fourth source of comfort and efficiency issues. And I want to emphasize, it's really this day and age, it's really about converting gas systems to heat pumps. It's your best bang for the buck. They're the most efficient way to go. They're environmentally friendly because you can use renewables to power them. They're all electric based, obviously. And there are been huge gains in the technology for heat pumps, and they can still heat well below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Years ago, there were a lot of complaints about, hey, my heat pump, it just seems like it's blowing cold air. Well, again, I won't get into all the details, but it's not that way anymore. And you do feel real warmth coming out of the registers these days. So really night and day difference from, let's say, 20 years ago even. So, and what's great about this is the same equipment is used for both heating and cooling. You don't have a gas furnaces sitting there not being used for half the year, and but it's used year round. So, and we'll talk about what that means. They're safer, and they typically require less maintenance because you don't have to worry about all the combustion aspects of it. So, okay. And then kind of heat pump 101 here. Okay, I'm not going to get into big on the refrigeration cycle here, but heat pumps move heat between the indoors and the outdoors. They're not creating heat by burning a fossil fuel. So, and it's all done, it's called the refrigeration cycle, but it's all done with compressing and expanding the refrigerant. So we're sucking heat out of the outdoors in the wintertime and dumping it inside. And then in the summer, there's a reversing valve, and this goes opposite. You're sucking heat out from the inside and you're dumping it to the outside. So it's a much more efficient way to generate heat and or generate cooling in the summer. It's just moving this back and forth. Okay. And then some additional information, and this is just for your information, your reading pleasure downstream here. But there's some real good videos on this old house. You just don't have time to show them today. Some basics about how that refrigeration cycle works. It's really good. And then some different types of heat pumps. There's typically 4 types: water to water, water to air, air to air, and air to water. The air to air is typically it's the most common, and it's the least expensive, and it's typically what you see, but most prevalent. But there are the water based that have the water source for heating are typically geothermal, and typically more expensive because you do deep wells or loop system, and they anymore air to air is really about as efficient as and probably when you look at it is a cost effective. It's probably better than geothermal these days, in my personal opinion. So, but the point being here is, regardless of your congregation's heat source, whether it be radiators, forced air, you've got another type system where you've got a water coils in a forced air system, and whether you've got a very large church that's using all commercial systems, or you've got a smaller campus that are using more residential systems, there are some really good options available for your congregation. So do not let everybody just discount these. Some of these, when you get into the commercial heat pumps, they're not as well known and I guess well distributed, but they're out there. So you just got to look and don't be dissuaded by the HVAC person that maybe isn't familiar with them. Okay, so this is just a quick example of the kind of how some of this air can be distributed. This the picture represents a mini split type setup where you have one outdoor condenser. You can have this tied to multiple heads, where maybe you have a addition that just needs a wall mounted cassette, or you have a air handler which is on a central distribution system. You can put the air handler and this wall mount all attached to one outdoor unit these days. So the mini split manufacturers are making those. They're really good, and you can do this with multiple heads. So on one outdoor unit, so it saves a lot of money. So, and then there's short ducted systems that can be done with these mini split heads, so they're not even seen like this whole unit. But the bottom line is there's a ton of options, and these are ideal for retrofit scenarios. So I would put a lot of them in. So, but some common misconceptions for heat pumps is that, oh, they don't work well when it's cold. I talked to that in a minute, but some heat pumps that are out there will heat down to minus 15 degrees. We've been putting in a lot that are heating to 100% capacity. They don't even lose any performance at all, down to 5 degrees, which is fantastic. So, we can't go heat pump route because we have to do a ton of electrical upgrades. That is not really true either. You can some good heat pumps are out there that don't even require backup heat. That's where you use all the electric resistance. That's where you use all the power, where the power is demanded. And they can use you can use existing HVAC power for gas powered furnace, and the AC condenser is already outside. So in a typical forced air split system. So and people say, oh, there's no options for radiators or hydronic heating. There are those air to water options in particular that use a heat pump and then they heat water. And again, there's some good discussion in that video link that I put out from This Old House that you can read more about that. Just don't have time to go into all that today. But and then, oh, heat pumps are way more expensive. Oh, we can't do that. Well, they're really comparable to high efficiency gas, but there are tax credits and there's rebates out there. A lot of that are geared towards homeowners, but there's a lot of stuff that's out there that the government's really pushing towards electrification for obvious climate reasons. So, okay. Jumping on heat pump water heaters. I don't have a picture in here, but it's a newer technology. It's just essentially it's electric water heater with a heat pump on top. It's a little bit taller, and the heat pump is using heat from the air, and it runs refrigerant all around the tank and transfers that heat into the water. They are significantly more efficient than gas, and even the high efficiency gas condensing tankless or the standard electric heaters. So some of the pros, obviously the efficiency, they're going to be cheaper to operate and cheaper. They pay for themselves long term, and they offer dehumidification. So they're great in a humid basement scenario that a lot of folks have. The cons, and they really aren't horrible cons at all. But it just, in full disclosure, they do cool down the room when they are sucking heat in from the surrounding air in the room. So, and they discharge that little bit cooler air. They need about 700 cubic feet in a mechanical room, so they're not great in a closet. But we have vented the discharge air out of a mechanical closet and be able to draw the warm air in, so they get the proper efficiency out of them. And they're a little more expensive up front. But I do expect these to be the standard going forward on water heaters. It's heading down that way. In 10 years, that might be what you see. A lot of these old ones are going to go away. So, okay. And then just quickly, how do you start, okay, on this journey? Really, it starts with getting some help, because you can go 10 different ways to Sunday on all this stuff. And you ask yourself, well, we could spend, $50K on windows. Is that really the right thing to do? Somebody says yes. Somebody says, oh no. And there's better uses for that money. Well, have a professional come in, do an ASHRAE level 2 or 3 audit. That's a commercial level energy audit. Level 3, or sometimes we call it 2+, because it doesn't get officially 3, is with the blower door, and you get a lot more technical information out of that. But have somebody professionally assess the issues of what's going on, what you really need. They should provide a list of those improvements in a priority order, so you can understand what you really should do and in what order, and then give you costs associated with those. And they can help you work out kind of a long-term roadmap. There's many ways to do that, and often everybody can't do it at once. They have to bite a little bit of the apple at a time, but that's really very fruitful and very helpful for a lot of folks. So, but the point is, and you'll hear more about this, but I know my company offers commercial loan options up to $1 million, but there's many financial options that exist for these improvements. So please do not let that be an impediment to just doing nothing. So most of these congregations are, and the campuses are sadly in kind of rough shape. And all that money you're saving could be poured into community projects and the work that you should be doing, and not just paying your utility bills. So. And then kind of quickly in conclusion, as I mentioned, air leakage is your #1 source of comfort and efficiency problems, followed by the low insulation duct leakage, and then looking at mechanical systems upgrades. And definitely heat pumps are the way to go. replacing these systems. Do it as planned replacements. Do not do it as emergency ones. You make poor decisions when you do it at the last minute, and it unfortunately is not well thought out. So, but start with that energy audit. Give yourself a chance with that prioritized roadmap to start making those improvements, and just know that you can make some basic starts on the envelope and save 20% or more to begin with. So, and then that's all I had. So,
Thank you very much, Scott. And why don't we take, if there are a couple of questions for Scott before Alison talks about how do we finance this, and particularly how BlocPower is working to finance HVAC systems and internal energy efficiency work for faith communities throughout the country. But let's take a few minutes if there are any questions for Dave.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
yep.
This is Dave Coakley from Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. And one question I have is, a lot of these congregations have tall or high chapels. And how much air stratification is going on? And does it make sense to try to spread the heat out so in the winter the top of the chapel is warm while the area where the people sit is cooler?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, you do get a lot of that. A lot of times that's done with simply ceiling fans and pushing that warm air down, similar to what you do in the house. It really depends on the structure and the height of the structure, and what you've got going on there. But you're absolutely right. They are cathedral pitched, and sometimes you can get above those and treat those, and sometimes it's harder. But the more air leakage you have out of the structure and the top of the structure, the greater the air stratification is going to be, because you're sucking cold air in at the lower levels while the hot air is going out of the top. So just that's something to keep in mind. And that was kind of the pictorial in that diagram that I offered in one of the slides.
John, you have your hand up. John Sunda.
Yeah. So I'm John Sunda with Bull Run Unitarian Universalist in Manassas, and I'm in the process of retrofitting our building, and we're going to be ultimately getting rid of a couple of oil boilers, probably with air-to-air heat pumps. So we may end up putting in some ductless systems running on the outside of the building. But the first unit I want to do right now is replacing a very old air conditioner unit. And it's 7 ton. And I think the unit we're going to put in is probably going to be another 7-ton unit, because it's a room with lots of people in it. So, and I know that kind of drives the load calculation for that. The thing is, when I start looking at the equipment, once you get above 5 tons, the number of the availability of high efficiency equipment that can run at low temperatures. I do not want to put in a heat coil or whatever, a heat strip in there. Is there particular companies that I should be looking for this equipment?
Typically, some of those systems, Mitsubishi makes a lot of really good ones that are their hyperheat systems that drive down into those really low temperatures.
Yeah. Well, I have one like that at my home right now. One of your things I replaced my my air handler with an indoor unit, and several units in part of the house that weren't getting the right heat or cold. But the thing is, I started looking at commercial, and I'm not seeing a lot very high performance stuff. I'm concerned that when it gets really cold outside, and we stop using the boiler and the heat loop that's in the air handling system right now, that we'll be able to keep up. So Mitsubishi, when you look at the bigger units, they had a very fancy unit that allows you to push heat, hot and cold air, or the refrigerant in different parts of the building stuff. That seemed rather expensive.
Yeah, that's a VRF system, variable refrigerant flow. Something you might consider, sir, is maybe you keep your oil systems as kind of a backup when it gets super cold out, and you may only operate those for, a week out of the whole year,
Yeah.
is, a different option. I don't know the whole situation, but that's,
Okay.
that can be.
Well, why don't we take
That's enough. Yeah.
questions?
Okay. I'm
John?
fine. Thank you.
John,
Yeah.
John, why don't we take questions and put them in the chat? And then also we'll put in Scott Donelson's email contact for the more
Okay.
specific questions, because
Yeah.
I really want to make sure that we've got plenty of time to
Yeah. I understand.
listen to what Alison has to share with us about the BlocPower program, which I think is a critical part, which is how do you fund these things, many of which are rather expensive. So, Alison, if you would please share with us about BlocPower.
Yes. One moment. I pull up my screen here.
And while she's putting it up, if you have any questions as this goes along, put them in the chat, and we'll make sure that they all get answered.
Yeah, thanks, Eric, for hosting this and inviting me to be part of this webinar. Hello, everyone. I'm Alison Derevensky on the Enterprise Partnerships team at BlocPower. I'm also a lifelong Unitarian Universalist from the First Unitarian Congregation in Brooklyn, New York City, and I'm currently based in State College, Pennsylvania. So yeah, without further ado, I'll get into who's BlocPower and how we can help. So we are a New York City-based Black-led B corporation, and our mission is to make buildings greener, healthier, and more profitable by energy efficiency upgrades. We are essentially a one-stop shop providing everything from engineering design, incentive management, financing, project oversight, making sure that all of the aspects of an energy efficiency project go smoothly and meet your building needs, regardless of what stage in the process you are. We are also supported by the most prominent companies like Goldman Sachs, Anderson Horowitz, Microsoft, Capor Capital, and many more investors. Bit of an agenda for my slides. I'll go into a bit about the challenge of electrifying houses of worship, as many of you have experienced with, a bit about BlocPower and what we do and how we do it, a few of our case studies, and then next steps. This problem was brought up a little bit, but essentially electrifying houses of worship, it's a very unique building stock and requires unique heat pump sizing, unique and creative approaches to energy efficiency that may not be the same for a multifamily or single family home. There's a variety of different houses of worship buildings ranging from hundreds of years old to brand new ones, new construction. So BlocPower tries to address all the different challenges as we meet them. Building electrification is very complex, as many of you know. It includes engineering, construction contractors, equipment purchasing, financing, securing broadband access, government and utility incentive and permitting. And there are a lot of stakeholders that are involved in making an electrification project happen or an energy efficiency upgrade project happen. And BlocPower can handle all of those things so that a building owner only has to talk with the BlocPower representative. We meet sustainability goals and building needs based on your current congregation's climate goals or initiatives that you're trying to meet, such as the UUA Green Sanctuary campaign. We are a one-stop shop project management resource, so we help with sourcing equipment, providing recommendations based on your building needs, based on energy audit review results. We also do incentive and rebate management. So if there are certain incentives and rebates that you qualify for example, some of the new IRA incentives may apply to your congregation, we'll help you with that. and financing, which I will get into. Specific value to houses of worship from the BlocPower team. Like I said, we help to make sure that your congregation is meeting your sustainability goals and climate justice goals, including faith-aligned initiatives focused on climate solutions like HVACs, or the UUA Green Sanctuary campaign. We ensure that energy efficiency upgrades to HVAC systems and gas to electric stoves result in healthier environments, cleaner air, and this is particularly important for those congregations that have the steeper chapels, that have the older buildings that need healthier indoor air quality for your congregants. And our one-stop shop with all of the different services we provide allows for congregations to work with us and your existing networks to make projects work for your building needs. We'll work with your existing contractors. If you have relationships with folks that you like to do work with, we can work with them, and we'll work with your decision-making committees, climate change or green committees within the church, or building records keepers, things like that. So all the relevant stakeholders are involved in the decision-making process. Our project management, as I explained, includes zero down construction financing, incentive capture, including the new IRA programs from the DOE, planning, engineering, and equipment selection, construction management, permitting and commissioning, and operations and maintenance. And again, the building owner or the congregation just has to talk with someone from BlocPower, and we handle all of the other stakeholders for you. So, like I said, BlocPower delivers comprehensive projects. So we do focus on air source heat pumps. That's our specialty, but we also do projects that include heat pump hot water heaters, home appliances like heat pump dryers, lighting upgrades, electrical panel upgrades, and building envelope work, insulation, fixing attic leaks, roof repair, windows, battery storage, solar. We can help wrap all of these projects to fit your building needs. As I mentioned, one of our primary upgrades are heat pumps. Like Scott mentioned, the heat pumps move air from one place to another to efficiently heat and cool spaces. They use less than half the energy of gas, oil, or electric resistance heating systems. And US residential heat pump sales surpassed gas furnaces in 2022. We expect a lot more heat pump sales with the rise of tax credits and rebates such as the IRA programs. A bit about our financing. So obviously these projects can be very expensive. And what's unique about BlocPower is we cater to low to moderate income communities, climate justice communities, multifamily buildings, houses of worship, and other folks that aren't typically able to afford energy efficiency projects and historically haven't been able to access these types of technologies until now. We have a zero down financing with holistic approach to approval. Like I mentioned, working with all relevant stakeholders involved. 15-year term or shorter, depending on the type of equipment. And this makes for more affordable monthly payments. 15 years is also the typical lifespan of a heat pump. We have a small buyout at the end of the term, and you can choose to install a new heat pump and do another project with us, or just buy out the equipment that you already have. There's no lien on the building itself. We only, the financing is only for the equipment itself. So there's no issues with your congregation or building property attached to our financing offers. And the other bits are no fees for underwriting or early buyout, and flexible capital. A bit of a comparison to ESCOs and PACE. We include we serve market rate customers, like I mentioned, large buildings and portfolio customers. We finance electrification measures, including installation and building envelope, and we offer financing to LMI customers. Sometimes bigger ESCOs do not, and PACE requires a lien on the property for LMI customers, which we do not. I mentioned incentive management. This is going to be more important as more incentives are announced through state energy offices and through federal incentives, also local utility incentives. We help to wrap those incentives into the overall financing offer to congregations and other houses of worship so that they are wrapped into the final price. And we work with contractors to figure out how the incentive will be dispersed based on the incentive rules. So if contractor receives the incentive or BlocPower receives the incentive, we figure that out for you. Our typical customer experience, you fill out an interest form on our website, or you get in contact with me or somebody at BlocPower to schedule a call. We go through your building needs, go through your energy audit results, and we put together a preliminary scope of work based on all of the different building electrification recommendations that we have and an estimated price. We put together a lease proposal based on the specifics of the building needs and project requirements that you're looking for. If we're all happy with that, we sign an energy services agreement, and then we go into technical design finalization. We manage the installation and construction, and we are with you every step of the way through that process. And we handle maintenance and manage the system performance for 15 years or more, depending on how long the lease you have with us is and how your equipment is doing. A small case study of a house of worship we worked on in Brooklyn, New York, Mount Ararat Baptist Church, needed to reduce energy waste from drafty windows and lack of airtightness. As Scott was mentioning, this is a very important step in electrifying houses of worship, is sealing up all those cracks and holes. So we had our workforce team conduct a blower door test. We did air sealing and weather stripping. But like I said, we will also work with local contractors or folks that you're already comfortable working with to complete this work. There was a total of 2 days spent on the project, and that resulted in a 30% air leakage reduction and 10% projected bill savings. And our last slide of the night is how BlocPower can help your congregation. If you have completed an energy audit or you plan to complete an energy audit, feel free to schedule a meeting with us to review the results and talk about potential upgrade projects. If you're interested in our financing for a project you already have in mind or a project you're thinking about, we can discuss the right approach, and you can email me. My email is alison@blockpower.io. We'll also put it in the chat, and Eric also has my email. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. I guess the experience that we had with Scott, where there were probably 20 questions that were put into the chat, is that perhaps the best way of having Allison respond to your questions is if you can put them in the chat, and then we'll make sure that she gets to them and that she answers them. But I want to thank you very much, Allison, and also Scott. I also have a little bit to present because this financing issue is such a critical one that what we've done is to get some technical assistance around how we can help congregations throughout Northern Virginia, throughout Virginia, to fund the kind of building upgrades for which there may not be capital funds that have been set aside, or for which the congregation's resources are focused on the mission of the congregation, and heat pumps and HVAC and all this stuff seems like a distraction. So what we want to do is to say, okay, make as straightforward as possible. And I do want to point out, we're not only recording this presentation, but the presentations that each one of the participants are making will turn into PDFs so they don't suck up all the energy in your email, and we'll send them out to you. But I want to rather briefly share and then let you know that this presentation and the other presentations will be sent out to everyone. And we also will be posting these up on the FACS website so that you can take a look at them. Because there are a whole lot of embedded links, just as Scott was showing with what's this, Our Old House. There's some really great videos. So I'm going to hopefully share, if I can find out where it is. And I can't find it. No, sorry. No, it's here. Because I can see it on my computer. So let's keep. Let me give it one more try here. There we are. Okay. Okay, this is going to be a really quick run through of financing options for faith communities to do building energy efficiency upgrades, and also as well solar installations or renewable energy. Quickly, we'll go through the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits and direct pays, grant funding, utility incentives, energy performance savings contracts or EPSCs or ESCOs, and then some of the loan products that are out there, the various acronyms that are thrown out, but CPACE, contractor and denominational resources. So one of the real benefits of the Inflation Reduction Act is called Section 179D, which is for energy efficient commercial building deductions. Now, this is somewhat confusing because faith communities are considered commercial buildings. And this is a tax deduction. Now, since not-for-profits do not receive tax deductions, there is a mechanism that has been developed which allows faith communities to write an allocation letter to a contractor. The contractor then is able to take that 30% tax deduction and then give you the reduction in the cost. This is for energy efficiency upgrades. Now, the requirement is you have somebody like Scott or people that Alison works with who are certified engineers who do an ASHRAE energy audit to certify that the reduction in energy use is at least 25%. A detailed audit is required. So the typical process will be the faith community works with a certified engineer or a contractor, certifies that the design meets the 179D requirements. The upgrades are completed, and then through an allocation letter, the engineer or the contractor is able to take that 30% reduction. If we go back to the front, the contract that is developed with the contractor takes into account that federal tax deduction. This just provides a little more information, and there are links that are embedded in here. So for energy efficient, for renewable energy, there is a direct pay for tax exempt organizations, so that we can now leverage federal programs for energy and resiliency improvements, such as wind, solar, or battery storage technologies. The feds finally last week released the IRS pre-registration tool, and the link is there. So now we can register for these tax credits for renewable energy. For renewable energy, the IRS process is a little bit different. You identify what the project is that meets the goals. You complete the project, complete the pre-tax filing registration, file a tax return, and it's not clear how long, someplace between 6 or 18 months, you get a check. Many of the companies that are involved in power purchase agreements or in working with congregations to install renewable energy will take this the length of time into account for the tax benefit, and may give you either a bridge loan or some other mechanism to reduce the out-of-pocket burden of the congregation. So there are several of these specific tax direct pays from the feds. A clean energy investment tax credit here, which is the 48D program. And then a second one is an IRA production tax credit, and also direct pay. Oops, let's see, there must be a back. Hold on. There are several federal programs which are sending money on a formula basis or in a competitive grant program to the states or to regional governments. The most critical one here is the climate pollution reduction grants, the implementation grants. Both the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, or COG, and the state of Virginia are planning major proposals to the federal government for, I think it's something like $4.5 billion. It's in the billions of dollars that states and local governments are competing for. And one of the components of it can be funding for direct investment in energy efficiency upgrades in faith buildings and in other buildings. There are links in here to those programs, and there will be, I think it's on the 25th of January, a Northern Virginia public hearing that the state of Virginia is going to be doing for its climate pollution reduction grant application. Information of that we'll send out as well. Additional resources that are available. Interfaith Power and Light has a terrific program that describes the federal resources, and also the National Renewable Energy Laboratory has a table with substantial information. Again, all of this information will be linked in the materials that we send out. Accessing state, regional, and local sustainability funds. The Northern Virginia Regional Commission, or NVRC, just today put out a terrific resource that is linked here under this regional and local assistance of all of the local county and city financial assistance programs for building upgrades that are in Northern Virginia. And I want to particularly point out for those congregations that are in Fairfax, Fairfax has an energy conservation matching grants program, which will match at a 50% rate up to $5,000 for energy audits and for up to $10,000 for energy upgrades. And the QR code here will get you directly to that. Finally, FACS may develop a very small grant program to assist congregations with their costs. Whoops. Utility programs. Many of you are already aware of Dominion Energy's Building Engagement Program. That's a program for Dominion customers where by working with Honeywell, which is their contractor, will provide free sort of level 1 energy audits that will help to provide what are the very low-hanging fruits that you can do within your congregation to save, as they estimate, between 5 and 25% of your energy costs in a year through implementing low and no cost energy upgrades. Those of you who are in the NOVEC service area, there is also a commercial partnership program that does provide energy audits. Many of the other local electrical co-ops, as far as I can tell, do not provide, but you should go and ask them specifically for what kind of supports they provide. Now, energy savings contracts are, in a way, much of what Alison was talking about. Energy savings contracts, known as energy performance contracts, are mechanisms that are used to pay for present-day upgrades that are paid for through future energy savings that are the result of the upgrades. So essentially, you're getting the benefit of the improved energy efficiency of either the new equipment or insulation or LED lights, a variety of things. And you pay the cost of the loan through the savings that are made in your utility bills. It's generally a partner. And for more details, there's a link in there. The Department of Energy has more information. This kind of is a graphic of what you would expect to see and should see in an EPSC. You're paying a lot upfront during the period of financing in which you're paying down the loan for the new equipment that was installed up front. There's the loan payment, and typically savings of between 5 and 15% of your utility bills in addition to paying off the loan. And after the financing term, after you own the equipment, all of those savings are yours, and you have reduced energy cost. BlocPower is a potential ESCO partner, and this is a screenshot of their website. Something that is pretty common and has been pretty common. Last month, we had a very fine presentation from Joelle Novi of Interfaith Power and Light about power purchase agreements, which are typically done for solar arrays. And in a power purchase agreement, the developer arranges to fund and to install the solar array, and then you pay on the lease, you pay off on the savings of the energy that you receive. The Interfaith Power and Light DMV has a really fine description of that. One of the things that has happened with the Inflation Reduction Act is that it may make power purchase agreements less attractive and outright ownership more attractive than it has been in the past. But that's something that finance people who have more knowledge than I would have to help you work out. There's some specific examples of energy performance contracts. Typically, these are done with larger institutions or with organizations that have multiple facilities like school systems. But there are multiple examples of where there's substantial cost savings from an EPSC contract. Now, other loan products and financing mechanisms, really quickly. Denominations, many of them have loan and grant programs to support energy efficiency and renewable energy. The Presbyterian Church of the USA has a Restoring Creation Loans Program, which offers loans at approximately half of the current interest rate, construction loan rate for energy efficiency and renewable energy over $100,000. The United Church of Christ has a Creation Care Investment Program, Disciples of Christ, the Unitarian Universalist Association, many of the denominations, and the Interfaith Power and Light has produced a really good resource that lays out all of the faith-based funding resources within the denominations. Also, as Scott mentioned, contractors will facilitate loans. They are aware of a wide variety of financing options and will work with you, with your congregation, to make sure that you get the best possible deals. Something that is not used a lot in Virginia, but is accessible in some counties and cities in Virginia, and these green ones here, mostly Loudoun, Fairfax, what's that, Shenandoah County, and then some other counties around the state are all participating in a Virginia commercial property assessed clean energy program, in which commercial properties, which include faith communities, are able to get lower cost loans through a financing company such as a bank, through this program. It is used a lot in other states. It has not been well used in Virginia, and so many of our financial organizations are not terribly familiar with CPACE, but it does exist. It is a resource. And then there are a variety of self-funding options. A capital reserve, a green revolving fund, or fundraising. Multiple things. These are things that churches and congregations often do for capital construction. So that is a really quick run